Hey, I'm Shawn Kanungo. This is another episode of Dangerous Ideas. We break down concepts and frameworks that will change your life. Hey everyone, my name is Shawn Kanungo. This is another episode of Dangerous Ideas, my favorite podcast, because you know what we do in this podcast, we break down concepts and frameworks that will change your life, change your career, change your business, but most importantly, your life. And I have one of my all-time favorite guests back on the pod, Adam O'Brien, CEO of Bitcoin Well. Adam, thank you so much for coming.
My man, it's always a blast talking to you and being here.
And guess what? I got some. I normally don't do this because I normally just like you come on here and I spring the dangerous ideas on you, but I gave you a little bit of time to like take a look at some of the dangerous ideas. I don't know if you did take a look at some of them, but like
I read the first one and then I was like, oh, this is gonna be great, and then I closed it. So
it's like a text. It's like what text you saw. Okay, so let's get to the first one. There's this graph that came out, and we'll drop it. We'll drop it in the pod. But it's the idea of the rise of dopamine culture. Yeah. It's this idea that every single communication platform, whether it's TV, books, journalism, everything sort of goes into clickbait. So if you look at athletics, you know, we used to play sports. And then watch sports, and now we're gambling on sports.
Yeah.
Or you have film and TV, then they turn into like shorter bits, and now they're turning into like TikToks. Yeah. Or you have long form journalism, then you have smaller articles, and now you have clickbait, right? So everything sort of turns into like the most efficient piece of dopamine that you could get. And I thought it was actually trending on Twitter. It was a really interesting insight. But my actual hot take is that this graph is actually a graph that represents the degradation of trust. When we turn everything into the most efficient atom possible, when it's a clickbait, when it's a TikTok, when it's just like this slice of information, what we're doing is we're removing all the context, we're removing all the meat, and we're left with something that I don't think people can really trust. Yet this is how we like consume stuff. We're swiping, we're tapping, and we think that this is it's just a degradation of trust at the end of the day.
It's trust. Even one step further to that, it's just been the downfall of money. It's like Trust is a symptom of our energy, and if my energy is good, if I do good things with my energy, you're going to trust who I am and the future things that I will do with my energy. And our energy is, of course, a reflection of purchasing power. How much value can we create in one go or in a certain framework of time, and then what can I get with that value, basically. And so as our money continues to deteriorate, and the trust in the world continues to deteriorate, we've removed this. We societally and we the authority has moved this free market capability where you and I used to be in competition, not you and I specifically, but like you and I, person to person. We were both in competition for kind of equal bits,
resources,
right? If I was competing for one unit, you were competing for that same unit. May the best man win, right? The best man should get the one unit. Now we're in a state where you and I are competing for like a tenth of the unit. And so we need to cheat and steal our way to get what is now less. And that's where we're seeing, like, we're calling it efficiency, which it's interesting you said that. When I said that, I was like, no, it's not efficient, it's bad. But like efficiency can be bad in this case, where we are foregoing a bunch of the benefits because there's no longer a mutual benefit needed. It's all about what can I get from this article or what can I get from this game. And entertainment isn't enough because we're in this debt spiral. We're in this free fall of we're being inundated with our value, the value we create with our time, by the second is being deteriorated.
Yes.
And as a result, we need to be in a constant state of like, we're in fight or flight at all times, because as our value gets eroded, like you and I are working today, we know that the value we're creating today will not be worth enough in a year to do the same thing. We're gonna have to work harder, or we're gonna have to find other means to make those things happen. That's where the stock market and this fiat mindset of investing kind of comes into play. And that's where we're getting deduced down to, like you said, just dopamine, because people pay for dopamine. It's the most expensive drug on the market, and it's a silent killer.
Yeah.
Not in the sense that you will overdose on it. You will just physically kill yourself to get more, and you won't even know that you're doing it. And so as companies are realizing, they're in the same free fall, they're in the same financial peril as humanity is. And as they realize we actually can't afford to do the work to get one unit, because even if we do all this work, there's only a tenth of a unit out there. There's no more free market. There's no more clean slate of us to be able to work and then earn. And so they're tricking and stealing. And we're just, as humanity, we're so susceptible to the tricks that are at hand. And the dopamine is the drug.
What do you mean? Like, so what do you mean that we only have 1/10 of this value that we can? So who's taking the other 9/10 of it?
Well, it's all the red tape along the way. It's inflation. It's the added bureaucracy. It's the
Big
extra taxes.
Okay.
It's the middleman that we had to put in to protect X, Y, and Z from happening. It's all those little things that don't actually provide any value. Like a funny example, my son, we were playing hockey. I'm a coach, and in Sherwood Park, which is where we play hockey. So he's just 7. So we play half ice, and we have these boards that we put up in the center of the ice. And in Sherwood Park, you need to wear skates and a helmet to go on the ice to put the boards up. And I'm the head coach, so I don't put the boards up. I'm like getting the team all amped up, calling up the lines, and I help the team warm up. So I walk across the ice in my shoes with no helmet to get to the boards, as the assistant coaches skate to put the boards up, which is like a really dumb bureaucratic decision that somebody made somewhere, probably for like insurance or liability reasons. And then if you drive for 10 minutes and go to an Edmonton rink, those rules don't exist.
Right.
And so this concept of like a free market, like obviously there's no value being happening there, but the point stands true that there are a ton of arbitrary rules, arbitrary things that make no sense in the logic of the world, the physics of the world. And those all cost. Those, like, we think that as we add rules, as we add structure, as we, in this case, remove efficiency, there's no cost to that. It's making things safer, it's making things better. But that's not the case. There's always a balance. The same way matter cannot be created or destroyed, we can't assume that making things less efficient is just going to have, the only cost is going to be efficiency. There's going to be other costs. And in this case, again, like, you and your neighbor are not in competition for an equal prize anymore. And even better, like, back to this original example, if you and your neighbor each worked 1 unit, you could expect to receive each 1 unit of value. Or if you were a bit better, you would get 1.5 units and I would get a half unit until I, stepped up my game, and then I could earn that full unit, usually at your loss. But with all of the peril, with all of the problems coming into play, all of the red tape, etc., we're taking away from those units at the end. So 1 unit of effort no longer equals 1 unit of value, because the value is getting stripped away in the bureaucratic nature, which, I mean, again, we talked about it like just before we turned on the cameras.
Yeah.
Bitcoin fixes that.
What's interesting is that, obviously, as somebody that creates content, and you're starting a I don't know if that's like public information, but
soon we'll be soon.
You're going to start a network, basically, which is incredible. And you think about where the degradation of content or the degradation of trust. At the end of the day, I started to think of my own behavior. Absolutely, like, I'm reading tweets, I'm looking at reels, I'm looking at TikToks, I'm reading headlines. So I'm absolutely part of this. Like, I'm part of this dopamine culture. I also like dopamine. I get the notifications. I'm part of this as well. And I also understand my own behavior, where I'll give you an example. Some of my friends are watching Love is Blind. You watch Love is Blind? It's on Netflix.
It's so funny. My wife started watching it. I watched like 30 seconds of it. I was like, this is brutal.
So I don't watch Love is Blind on Netflix, but periodically I'll just go on TikTok and I'll watch, like, basically the clips, the highlights of Love is Blind. And guess what? I'm still I can be still part of the conversations. Even though I didn't watch the show, I just watched the clips. And if I think about my consumption when it comes to basketball, for example. I don't watch the full basketball games. I just can't. I got 3 kids. I can't watch like full basketball games. And so I just watch highlights. I listen to the commentary. I listen to the gossip behind the scenes without actually watching the actual meat. Same thing with Love is Blind. I'm not actually watching the meat. I'm watching all the dopamine around it. And I'm actually a part of this. And so what is this? Like, what am I doing? Like, is this like shadow like consumption or?
Well, you're not watching it. People that put up with the non-dopamine part of a show or of the sports, like that watch the intermission or whatever, they're not going to talk about that. You're consuming those things because you want to be involved in a conversation or a community later on, right? It doesn't actually matter what happened in like minute 4 of period 2 in the neutral zone, but you watching the game, you're getting enjoyment out of that because there's dopamine falls and spikes throughout the game. When you like, you ever watch the red zone during on the NFL red zone?
Yeah.
It is. I'm exhausted. Like when that is on for an hour.
Yeah.
It is like you're just like on a highway going 400 kilometers an hour.
Yeah.
And you just like it's like you can't think, you can't do anything. There's like good luck just even thinking about what you want to eat.
They design it like that.
Oh, of course, man, because it's invigorating and it's like you just want to be there, but it's less enjoyable. Like when you leave. It's all about what we want, and as our time preference adjusts from a.
What do you mean it's less enjoyable? It's actually more enjoyable.
Short term, it is, but you don't leave energized.
Right.
Like you don't leave. Like you ever sit in the hot tub and you're super chill and you have a good conversation, and it's not like if it was filmed, you wouldn't watch it back. You would never watch it back. An hour and a half conversation with your best buddies, maybe your wife, like and you leave and you're like, whoa, I'm fired up. Like, I'm going to change the world.
Right.
I'm going to change myself.
Right.
I'm going to get it.
Right.
And like, there's no dopamine, but the dopamine hits as you leave, you're getting more energized, more fired up. When red zone turns off, it's like you're just dead. You're done. And you leave thinking, I need more red zone. You don't leave thinking,
wow,
I'm going to change myself. I'm going to go and put this thing that I just spent 2 hours that wasn't very exciting to sit there and talk chill with a bubbly in the hot tub. Like, it's nice, it's relaxing, but then you leave fired up. That's better dopamine. That's more dopamine. That's longer dopamine. And we're losing that.
Right.
We're losing the ability, because I do it too, man.
That's such an insightful observation that you actually don't get energy from the dopamine hits, but in reality, you probably, whether it's you're reading something that's a long form, or you're having a long form conversation with somebody that at the end of the day, that's what actually will translate into action or energy at the end of the day.
Like books. Like I'm listening to the Elon Musk autobiography now. It's crazy and it's super long. I've been listening to it for a month.
Yeah,
it's a long time.
And you know what's funny is that I love books. Obviously, as an author, I love books. But with the Elon book, and I love Walter Isaacson. I think he's an incredible writer. I've been consuming that book through podcasts and tweets and other things, and I'm part of this dopamine culture.
Totally, man.
But so what do you have any dangerous ideas from that book? Like, what are you learning that's a super dangerous idea from Elon Musk and the Walter Isaacson
well, he's got this
biography?
I would say it's like a revolutionary idea, but this concept that being nice to one person hurts more people, which is such an interesting.
Say that again. So this is a dangerous idea. So being nice
to one
person.
Sorry, not being nice. Being unfairly nice to one person hurts more people. Which is we are taught as kids to be nice. I think rightfully so. I am nice. I think if you talk to most people who know me, they would say Adam's a nice guy. I don't lose my mind. But in Elon's world, if you make a mistake, short leash, very, very short.
He has a short
leash for you as the worker. If you're making bad decisions, you're not going to last long in Elon's world. And in my mind, like my leadership style is like maybe a longer leash. Like if you're making bad decisions, let me teach you how to make the right decisions, or at least work with you so that we together come up with a better idea to make better decisions. But the way that he explains it, like logically and physically makes sense, where if someone's making bad decisions and those decisions affect 10 people, then by that person, you allowing that person to continue to make bad decisions, you're harming 10.
Right.
So you could be mean and fire that one person, and you will in fact save, 10 or 20, or like,
Right.
let's extrapolate this into like, the head of something at Tesla who has 400 people responding to their decisions.
Right.
Like if that head is not making the right decisions, you got to get rid of them. So that, and obviously at length that makes sense. But that was really interesting. Like, and I'm still wrestling with that. I don't know that
Makes sense. It actually makes sense.
physically and logically it does. But then there's lines, and then where he does a good job is knowing exactly which decisions matter, because there's a balance to that, right?
Yeah.
If I wear the wrong color sock, that's not a decision that's going to affect many people. But
Right.
so there's balance and nuance inside of that. But as a baseline, and I don't think I'm changing my thinking on that. I still do believe that training over a long period of time, training people to make proper decisions is better than just assuming you can hire someone new to make the right decision. But yeah, I thought that was super interesting and kind of what stood out. But all in all, his ability to instinctually know what a timeline needs to be for success, ignore everyone telling him that it can't happen,
Yeah.
and then drive towards it is shocking. Like there's the chapter I listened to yesterday on my drive home, and talking about how they wanted to make some rocket cap. And he was like, they're like, it's going to take 6 weeks. He's like, do it by dawn, like 12 hours. And the author, like whoever they're talking to, is like, we didn't get it done by dawn. It took us till about 9 a.m. So like they wanted 6 weeks. He said dawn, and it was 9 a.m. Like just insane. And there's, again, bunch of nuance in that statement, but just shocking to have the confidence in your instincts to go ahead and just like make these egregious claims and asks of people, and then to be consistently right over and over and over and over is just, it's mind-blowing. But sorry, go ahead.
I think my observation, not reading the book, but listening to all this, and this included, is the idea that insane people get insane results.
Oh yeah, completely.
And Elon Musk is a psychopath.
Yes.
And that's why he's been arguably one of the most successful people to ever live.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to, just with my friends and the people around me, some people may not understand, my life or what I'm trying to achieve, and it may seem insane to them. But
I'm talking to a guy that like literally sells fake internet money.
I mean, you're a really great example of this, and I actually want to move. I want to move to a dangerous idea that I want to pick your brain about. But it's just the idea that insane people get insane results, and maybe, and is it like, can you be a normal person and get extraordinary results?
No, but normal, like
you can't.
You normal people don't want extraordinary results. Like there's just a complete disconnect. Like, and there's no such thing really as like normal people. There's just like differences in how you're doing it. And like, this is actually, back even to the first dangerous idea. Like when you only watch a highlight, when you only watch the clips of the show or of the book or whatever, you're actually trusting that other person knows exactly what you want to hear and to do. And you're trusting to get all of your insightful, like, why do we do anything, right? And there's two reasons. It's either to be entertained, slouch back and just turn it off, or to drive forward, to learn and to be inspired. And if it's to just sit back and turn it off, you're not doing yourself any favors, because you're not getting turned off. You're like getting, railroaded in your head. But if you're trying to learn, which I think we are, I don't know why we'd read a book if we didn't want to learn or be inspired, then you're just trusting that someone else is going to give you the proper Coles notes of you to be able to learn. And so we're kind of turning into this like collectivist society of like you've seen the AI bots. There's one article And then there's 100 articles that say the exact same thing that might miss, something that 80% of us would have actually enjoyed to have if we were actually reading the entire thing. Back in the day, so to speak, I don't think we had all the same idea. There wasn't this right versus left, one versus two type of narrative, you versus me type of narrative, because we were all taking different inspirations from the same pieces of content. Today, you get 1 minute to say your point, and that's it. And then that point just gets regurgitated throughout the entire circular network, collectivist network, and then you're doomed. Like, that's it. That's the only point that comes out of, and then also we are now disincentivized from making long form research and long form like you wrote a book, it's exhausting to write a book.
It is.
Does it make you sad that like people are going to actually just take 1/100th of that book, whatever they hear about on the podcast and on stuff? It's like, well, no, I wrote every chapter intentionally so that different people could get different things out of that book, and they're not, because it's going to be deduced to whatever is the most dopamine producing clip of the book. It's like your efforts are wasted. So like if you're gonna write another book, what are you gonna do? Write the whole book? Or you're gonna just like, I'll make a minute-long video about the one kind of hottest concept of the book, and now it's a worse value for everyone.
But I think there's still value. Going back to what you said, previously, is that you get energy from doing something that is hard, which is reading a book. And the greatest pleasure that I have is somebody saying, "Hey, I read the whole book."
Right.
And now, I've started a new business.
Yeah.
Or I've changed my life.
It changed my life.
Totally. And to that point, I don't think a TikTok, I don't think a clip, I don't think a headline has ever changed anybody's life.
It just actually can't, because there's not enough work that goes into value for value.
Yeah.
There's not enough work that goes into producing the clip or the headline, and there's not enough work that goes into consuming the clip or the headline.
Yeah.
There is physically, like the same way that you cannot jump 30 feet in the air because gravity physically will not let you, you can physically not change your life because there's not enough work on the creation or the consumption. Like,
holy shit.
Work produces value always, period. That's how it's always worked. It's a value for value world that we live in. That's the physics of the earth. And if you're not putting in work, or someone else hasn't put in work for you to consume, you just don't get the change. You don't get to produce value.
So let's just conclude here that on this piece, that by watching a clip, by getting the clickbait, by getting something that is like a second long, nobody will change their life based on that.
Completely, man. And it's funny, those types of things were designed and supposed to be marketing, so you would go, oh, that's interesting to me. My life is going to change if I do the work to go do the whole thing. But we're trapped at the surface. We're trapped in the marketing angle, and we never get past the marketing because there's always another short form.
And you know what the most meta thing is that I'm going to clip this up.
We're talking about how bad clips are for people on a clip.
Yeah. I'm going to clip this up, and I'm going to put it up on TikTok and other places. And somebody's like, hey, that was a good point. And they're going to scroll to somebody dancing.
No.
And
click the link and watch the whole thing.
Yes, you're going to change your life. That's why, I believe so heavily in this pod, because I really believe that if you actually listen to not just one episode, but if you listen to all these dangerous ideas that in aggregate of like the 100, 1,000 episodes that we're going to produce, that it will eventually change your life. So on this point, by the way, I had this really interesting conversation with a young person last week. And I call this dangerous idea the expectation crisis. And I actually think that it's your fault. It's Adam O'Brien's fault.
Oh,
Let me
like
explain.
this.
Let me explain. I met this girl. She's 24 years old. Super ambitious, like wants to make a dent in the universe, like natural born killer, and she will be. She works at a Big Four firm, just like I did. And she looks at my career. She's like, I want to be where you're at, but I don't want to do it in the time that you did it. You were at the firm for 12 years and subsequently started, your own company 6-7 years ago. I want to do what you do, but like a quarter of it in time. So how do I get there? And I love the ambition. I love the idea that she wants to create like a back door into doing this. But the problem is her expectations have impacted her happiness. She looks on social media, on LinkedIn, on people getting promoted, people getting fundraisers. She looks on Instagram and people traveling to Paris and Dubai and getting Lambos. And she looks at people that are entrepreneurs, very young, becoming very successful, getting 40 under 40, 30 under 30, Forbes, whatever. And there's an expectation that that's a reality. And in fact, 99% of people actually done what I've done, which is work for somewhere for a very long time, build incredible trust, getting punched in the face every single day, and then coming out the other side. Yeah. The average age for an entrepreneur is 42 years old. Whoa. And the problem is that people like you have become very successful early on. You started your own company, in your mid 20s, and you're publicly traded, and we glamorize and romanticize people like you and think that is normal when you are absolutely the anomaly.
Yeah. I'm also insane, so I get insane.
And you're also a psychopath.
Yeah.
And that's why you've gotten insane results. Yet that's not reality. So you are the problem.
Yeah.
You are the problem.
I don't disagree. And actually I was like, I think I was 19 when I started this. I got super young. But here's the thing. She works at a Big Four firm. All these Big Four firms guaranteed 4 to 6 weeks vacation a year.
I mean, if you start out, that's ambitious. You
so
probably get
two, 3,
maybe like 2, 3.
Okay, so over your 10-year career, you had half a year, like 20 weeks.
Yeah,
minimum.
It raises. It probably goes further.
So over a 10-year career, what do you have? 52 weeks of vacation, maybe. So there's an entire year gone. Is she putting in the 9 p.m.? What's she doing from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m.?
No, she's grinding.
She's grinding.
She's a natural born killer.
So then why is she doing it for someone else? Here's the
well, there's money. I mean, the reality is that
right. So she's not eating Ichiban. Then she wants to live a certain lifestyle. When I started, there was no Lambos. There was work from 6 in the morning until 2 in the morning. Maybe sleep. You can ask my wife. I was a bear for 3 years. We were eating craft dinner. We're not going on trips. We're not doing anything. It's Adam's in his hole for 20 hours a day getting it done. There was a period where I went and we were living in Vancouver. I became an extra on TV sets. You go and sit there for 16 hours a day. Everyone's sitting in the extras spot, whatever, just BSing and chatting and eating the cinnamon buns. I'm sitting at this picnic table, answering customer support tickets, making the website, trying to, make a partnership with this company in Australia. That's, I had to supplement. I was making no money. I had to supplement my income somehow.
Being an extra. This is the best. This is the best part of the documentary, by the way. You're on set of this TV show.
Dude, literally, I'm on the set of Arrow, and I'm I'm in the corner building the website, and they're all right, extra 79 through extra 106, you got to come in. And I'm oh man, I'm not done. I'm finishing up, close the laptop, hide the laptop so no one steals it, get on set for stand there for an hour and a half, and then get back to my computer so I can finish up. You just.
But Adam, I
gotta find ways.
But Adam, I'm not. It's not about the work. I actually agree that
not the work. It's about the way that the work happened. Because rather than finding a job that locked me up, I found a job where my end goal was to work more on what I wanted to work more, and I found a way to supplement my income by doing and still be able to do what I did. And I think that when you work for someone else, you're just, they own you and they own the efforts that you have. And so unless that job is feeding the end goal, then it's the wrong job. And it's well, I make $100,000 a year. Well, then make 50 and go find the right job to get to the end thing. I mean, and in this dopamine culture, it's easier than ever to make $50,000 a year.
I think what the problem is that it's this expectation. Actually, another part of the conversation was that they're expected to get promoted or expect to get a salary raise when you work hard. And maybe we've talked about this before, but it's you've worked hard your entire career. I've worked hard. I didn't expect something given to me right away. The expectation, that's what a high achiever is. A high achiever is just anybody that works hard, that goes above and beyond. That's not deserving of more money. That's actually not deserving. That's what a high achiever does.
Yeah.
And I think it's the instant gratification that I worked hard. Where's my carrot?
Yeah.
Right. And I think that that's also sort of distorted the reality of, people coming into the workforce wanting everything now. And what's funny is that she was so like caught up with the idea, like it's not happening. I'm 24 years old. It's not happening. I was supposed to be a millionaire at 25 years old. When the problem is that that's not the there's too many anomalies out there that tell us that this is the truth when it's not.
Yeah.
When actually, if you want to build a brand, if you want to build, relationships, it's actually about putting in the work through a long period of time. And I get that people, you're talking about why are you working for somebody else. The reality is that most people have to work for somebody else because it's expensive out there.
For sure,
right?
but I think the majority of people should be working for somebody else because
unless you're an insane person.
Unless you're an insane person, but like you'll earn more if you hitch your cart. Like unless you are insane, if you hitch your cart to somebody that is insane, and they can and they need you, and you're providing incredible value for them, like you're going to succeed. You're going to get better. I also think like millionaire at 24 is the wrong metric. Of
course it is.
It's like you want generational wealth when you're 70. Like let's expand our horizon. Millionaire at 24, like so what? What what about when you're 34? What about when you're 54? Like
totally.
Let's set a century-long goal. I want my grandkids to benefit with $100 million worth of assets. Now that's the goal. Doesn't matter if you're a millionaire at 24 or a millionaire at 30. No, doesn't matter whatsoever. On your deathbed, if that's your goal, like your financial goal is that you want to be giving generational wealth to your bloodline, then like let's start with that. Think about this from a corporate perspective. It's like we want revenue to increase by 30% this year. It's like great. Yep. On day 2, we're like, oh no, we're not up 30% this. It's like, no, like we have 364 more days or 3 more days to get there. Like, cool it. Just keep putting the work in. We got the strategy. We believe in the strategy. You got the vision. You're going to work hard. Like, let's think about, the end, not just like the stepping stones kind of along the way. Because let me tell you, as somebody that has made and lost millions of dollars, like making $1 million is not the peak. It's like maintaining the $1 million, growing the $1 million, growing the 10 million, growing the billion. Like that's the work. That's the journey. And so I think you're bang on. Like this culture of immediate gratification, we're capped. We've got this, we're imposing a glass and it's turning into an opaque ceiling where we're just only going to be able to reach as high as the 60-minute or the 60-second dopamine hit allows us to reach.
Yeah.
And we're going to ignore the full book. We're going to ignore the hour and a half long podcast. We're going to ignore the 2 years of effort and grinding in favor of, oh, well, that other company offered me 10% more, so I'm going to make the jump and then start from scratch. And like, as long as your end goal is in mind, that's good. But I don't think we collectively, societally, do a good job of planning for that end goal. It's always about, this year. Even like a 1-year goal is just dumb. Like 10-year, 25-year, 50-year goal. My wife and I, we do this like, what do we want our kids to look like when they graduate? Like, for our youngest, that's 16 years from now. That's like, and then what has to happen when he's 2 so that when he's leaving the house at 18, he's a certain way. And like, we don't need him to be able to speak in full sentences right now, but when he's 18, he should be able to. But I'm not freaking out that he can't speak in full sentences when he's 2.
No, and he will. And that's just
exactly
eventual, right?
And it's eventual because he's going to put the work in and learn. But like, worried that you're not a millionaire when you're 24 is the same as me worried that my 2-year-old can't speak in full sentences. It's like, it's not your time yet. Just keep putting the work in and you're going to hit it.
So, but going back to it, the problem is you, because we glamorize your rise and we say,
well, it's easier to be.
Yeah, and it's sexy. We put Adam on a pedestal because he made it at a young age and he's created success at a very young age. Yet 99, we should also glamorize the person that worked at a company for 20
Isn't that
years.
Gary Vee? Like, how is Gary Vee not like, that's him. What does he always say? He was 32, working in his wine store, making minimum wage. Like, he's 54 and now he's reached like, you know, this peak status, but like, and he always says that, but we just forget, hey?
Yeah.
Because you're right.
The
That's not
problem with Gary Vee is that his cadence or his, you know, people see his clips and they're like, this guy, I don't know. I find a lot of respect. Yeah, he's insane. Well, insane people get insane results. Okay, so let me get to this other dangerous idea, which is this idea that I fundamentally believe that we are living through a renaissance period. I don't know if you saw recently what happened with OpenAI.
The chat Sora.
Sora.
Oh,
so Sora is a
insane.
text to video
Yeah.
generator, and I don't think we understand how profound this is. If I asked you 15 years ago, what jobs would AI take? You were like, maybe like lifting and storing and like warehouse stuff. And now it's coming for the most creative jobs. And actually, if I asked you 15 years ago, what would be the hardest thing for AI to replicate?
Creative.
You would say video.
Yeah.
You would say video. The ability for you to create compelling images together, to figure out the laws of physics, the laws of perception, and put that all together. And yet OpenAI has done that. They've actually done the hard part first. And if they've done the hard part first when it comes to something that is digital, and I've been saying this over and over again, is that AI is going to replicate anything that is digital. So any app, any website can now be recreated. And you can see that. Is it harder to replicate a video, or is it harder to replicate an app or website? It's hard to replicate the video. And so what does this mean? Technology is becoming increasingly more commoditized. And actually, I believe that in the future, computer programmers, 10 years ago, we're like, we got to put everybody in computer programming. We got to put everybody in computer science. To me, this is not as relevant anymore. Today, as technology becomes more commoditized, the differentiators are people that are hungry, people that can innovate, people that can tell a story, people that can cement a narrative, people that can build a brand, people that can, build that trust at the end of the day.
People that can think critically.
Totally.
People that can find a mission, make it authentic, and then deliver that mission are going to be the ones that succeed from now on. And all the barriers are gone.
Totally. And I think the thing with Sora is, yeah, maybe people may not have use cases for it, and listen, I will, because somebody that is in the business of persuasion and putting together presentations. I already use like generative AI for all my like decks and PowerPoints, and I use Runway, which is another text to video platform, which is not as good as Sora. I'm excited about Sora. 99.9% of people won't get any value from this Sora thing. Oh, I can create video. They're not going to be able to get it, but I don't think we understand the impact of it and what this means for anything else that is digital. And your ability, like the common way for us to present things to other people within the workplace is like Microsoft Word, Microsoft PowerPoint, Microsoft Excel. This is going to be when anybody can create a world, when you can visualize, when you through different ways, just through prompts. We're changing how we communicate with each other. And I think it's so profound.
Oh yeah, man. I think there's two ways that this could go in like right now, all we've seen is B-roll from Sora. We haven't seen, and there's yet to be developed a really, really good thought-provoking video purely from AI. There's been a script where someone has an idea, pulls out a 5 or 6 sentence idea, and then tells the AI, give me some color, and the AI will color it up. And then we can take that and put it into some B-roll to give us the dopamine and keep our attention. And then that, I've just taken a quick thought and made it into some monetizable content, and that's fine. But as we continue, like the AI is still going to have bias and programming bias behind it. As we continue to allow AI to generate and generate and generate and generate, the original thoughts are going to like shine. They're going to prevail. They're going to, especially when the delivery method, AI still today cannot innovate in the same way that a human being can. This is going to push a small number of insane individuals to innovate at a level so extreme, to break from the dopamine culture, to break from this kind of non-organic thought culture that we're ingrained in. And when that happens, there's going to be less of them than I think, there has been for the last 50 years. But when that happens, they're going to be so influential that we'll be talking about them like Martin Luther King style. There's going to be, when someone figures out how to break through the AI noise, have their vision, have their mission, and rally the troops behind that, you're not going to need fancy stuff. Like the mission, the authenticity, the human connection is still going to
100%.
be what prevails.
Well, I guess the counter argument to Sora and the counter argument to generative AI is that when everyone has a superpower,
nobody has a superpower.
No one has a superpower.
Completely, man. And like Sora's always existed. It just costs a lot more. Like I don't know about you, but like I guess I edited all my old videos like back in the day. But recently I don't edit any videos anymore. Like that goes out to somebody. I upload the file.
Yeah.
And then it comes back in edited form.
We know when Adam is post-economic, when he can edit, he can outsource all the video. Meanwhile, like Shawn and Neat was just like, okay.
Look at me, baby. But like now it's just click of a button. Before it was click of a button, send to someone else. Now it's click of a button, send to someone else's code. It's just getting more accessible. You don't need this is going to be obsolete. Are we going to need $10,000 worth of camera gear and mics and a set to have a meaningful show? No. Already though, we could just be posted up in a green screen and have it. But the authenticity would be there.
Because
energy.
when somebody watches this, they're like, we already see every layer. But when we watch something, we can immediately tell the effort that goes into something.
The
right?
work.
You could see the work.
Yes.
It's like subconscious. You can see it. They're like, when they see this, they're like, okay, they got 3 cameras. They came here,
Totally.
It looks like they put in work.
Yeah.
Right. And you see that through almost anything that we look at. We look at something on social media and we look at somebody that's giving a take. And if it's somebody that is just like off the street, we're not going to believe it as much as somebody that is like, that we know that already put in the work. So it's almost like the work becomes, which is funny because in a world that is this dopamine culture, we still do appreciate
the dopamine culture is temporary. We're going to gravitate towards work and effort because we're going to realize I'm not getting value, I'm tired, and then one of two things has to happen. You will change or you will die. That's it. And in both cases, the dopamine culture evaporates, right? If everyone addicted to dopamine died or everyone addicted to dopamine changed, like dopamine culture disappears. And as human beings, we're in this like early stage. We're in the love stage, the honeymoon stage with this instant all the time dopamine hitting. It's been like, what has it been? 5, 6, 10 years, like whatever. Once generations continue to fall and do not aspire to these great earth world changing things, I do not think the dopamine culture can or will survive because human beings are drawn to work. We're drawn to value for value economics. We're drawn to give our value, our time, our energy to somebody else that is equally putting in value and time and energy. And to your point, if everyone has a superpower, no one has a superpower, like only a handful of people could read. That was the big innovation, was like on your resume, like what can you do? Like I'm good with sticks and stones, I'm strong and I can read. It's like, whoa, you reading? Yeah, you're in. Like, let's go. I'm hiring you. You're smart. That's amazing. 10 years ago, it was like, or 20 years ago, like I can code, I can build you a website. You can build a website? Let's go. You're hired. Then it's like, I'm good with video. Let's go. What's the next thing, right? Like there's going to be something else that not everyone can do. We're just, like you said, it's a commodity. This is a commodity. And we're going to find the next thing, the human touch that nobody else is going to be able to replicate, at least until it becomes so sought after that everyone wants it.
And if you see, if you watch this play out, what this just means is that, and it's been happening every single year, that the power is moving to the individual.
Yeah.
Technology is becoming increasingly commoditized. Knowledge is becoming commoditized. Money is becoming commoditized. Like, the ability to be able to be a sovereign individual. I mean, that's going to be more of a thing as Bitcoin becomes more prevalent, as crypto becomes more prevalent. we're moving to a world where it's just you,
Yeah.
right? And the only like, there's no excuses anymore. Like, it comes back to you at the end of the day. And I get there's like, there's accessibility when it comes to some of this stuff. You need the internet or you need access to something. The reality today is that when it comes to generative AI, more people have access to generative AI through their smartphone than to clean water or decent sanitation services.
Whoa.
Because smartphones are so ubiquitous that there's more smartphones than people have like decent toilets. So
crazy.
because of that, we have access to generative AI. We have access to Bitcoin through the smartphone.
And bitcoinwall.com.
And hey, wow, subtle. And so what does this mean? That means that somebody that lives in Bangladesh with shoddy Wi-Fi can be a
Contractor.
can be a sovereign individual
Yeah.
that can make as much economic impact as somebody living in America.
Here's the funny thing, because it's someone that can create the same value, but demand less value than our previous, like, our world before was small. It was limited to, like,
Yep.
even prior to the telephone, it was limited to who your neighborhood, then telephones, then internet, and then remote work, Zoom, and like this remote work culture. And now we're even getting further where, like, and we're seeing it already, where the individual that can create the most value and require the least amount of value in return is going to win. And that's how we're kind of leveling this playing field of, like, yeah, go figure. The decentralization and democratization of technology is giving everybody an equal opportunity. And if you make a better video for less, you're going to get to work, but you're still going to have to work. But if you make a worse video for less, I'm going to go to the person that creates the best video. Because it's not actually about the sum of money. It's about the collective value that I have to pay to get the collective value in return. What we talked about at the top of the show, like, 1 unit of value should give me 1 unit of work, or 1 unit of work give me 1 unit of value, and vice versa. And when things are decentralized, when this is spread out amongst individuals equally and fairly, without a bunch of restrictions, without a bunch of red tape, and we've got a world where value can flow freely and the world becomes more prosperous because we have the ability finally to benefit from that.
So what happens in a world, because the immediate reaction to somebody, especially if you're in North America, is now that we've leveled the playing field around the world, like the greatest competitive advantage that we always had was that we live in America, we have access to the best resources, we have access to the best information, but now that has completely blown up. And now you can put anybody on this global scale and say, okay, who's going to create the most value? Who's going to create the best piece of work? And that's incredibly scary.
Yeah, like what it does is it puts the governments in competition with each other, because, like, right now, living in Canada, most places in Canada is very safe. Living in America, most places in America is very safe compared to, like, the gang-ridden, whatever. Mexico comes to mind of, like, places that are maybe less safe.
Yep.
And so, if I can live in Mexico like a king on my $80,000 a year salary. Well, yes, but you'll need a personal security guard. And now all of a sudden it's not that cheap. Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'll live in Canada. Like, we're understanding, the security and the infrastructure and all that stuff that was here when I was born, or that was here when I moved, it's not free. Like, we've got free healthcare. No, you don't, dummy. It costs you more on your property taxes and more in your general living as a whole. Like,
so you're telling me that the Bitcoin guy is saying, hey, we need government to help protect us?
No. I'm saying that the government costs you a ton of money that you don't realize. I'm saying,
but you're saying that if we need to create a safe environment, you can't just do that on your own unless you hire private.
Well, unless you hire private.
Well,
and
come
so,
on. Like,
well, hang on. Let's use, like,
that's a luxury belief. But
let's use hyperbolic logic to prove that it's not a luxury belief. If you can live for $1 a day in Bangladesh, and you can hire a private security detail for $100 a day in Bangladesh, and you can work and contract yourself to a company for $200 a day, you have now net $99 a day, positive to the plus, living in Bangladesh. If you can live for $150 a day in Canada and work for that same company for $200 a day, because that didn't change, you're now plus $49, right? So it's actually more economical for you to live somewhere cheaper, hire private security. That's going to be way better than private security, or than this public security that we have here. Now, I don't know what the actual numbers are, right? But in the hyperbolic scenario that we just walked through, like, the logic exists that it could be cheaper for you to live somewhere cheaper and just privatize your life. And that would also be a better product.
So where are you moving to?
Yeah, man, good question. Like, where is the safe place? Like, where is the safe place for your your physical safety?
Right.
Where is the safe place for your assets, for the value that you create with your time, for your kids? Where's the safe place for, like,
you don't think that the place that you live in right now, you live in Sherwood Park, Alberta, Canada, if I would hide like $1 billion, I would hide in the Sherwood Park.
I don't think you
Alberta.
would, man, because there's no place for you to hide. Like, it's safe. There's no one coming up to my door with knives.
Yeah.
Actually, one guy did like a year and a half ago. Freaked me out.
Wow.
It was crazy. But like, whatever. Call 911. He shows up. Like, yeah, it's very good, right? The physical safety is very good. The same is not true 20 minutes down, like, and 5 blocks away from this building. So it's creeping. Sherwood Park used to be like the home of safe areas. And now there's a shooting now and then in Sherwood Park. There's more stabbings this year than there were last year, and more last year than the year before. So it's like, the signs are on the wall. It's not getting more safe.
Right.
It's not saying the same safe. It is getting less safe.
Okay.
And that's true of, I think, every city in Canada, in America, in the Western world. It is getting less safe.
Why is that? Because the
money's eroding. Like, because you and I are not in competition for equal scraps anymore. You and I are in competition for less. So we've got more competition for less value. We have to work harder for less value. So I'm actually incentivized to take you out more than to work hard.
Right.
It is more beneficial for me to cheat
and because
than it
of
is
the
to work hard.
and because of that competitive nature, it's caused people to battle each other in this way.
To battle each other, but also to deduce themselves to their quickest hit. And like, when you deduce yourself to that level, and then you add in physical substance or the short-term fastest path to dopamine in substance, you don't create a very healthy mind space. And then collectively, we've got an unhealthy mind space, while collectively we are increasing competition and decreasing reward. Like, this is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
It's not a recipe for more safety at the very best, right? And so, like, yeah, like, but like, where is it, right? Like, where is the safe place? And to your point, it's back to individual. It's taking your family unit as a whole and thinking to yourself, where do I want to be? But like, let me ask you this, and let's extend our time preference for a second. We look at a country that was at the peak, and then absolutely got wrecked. When it's time to leave, it's too late. You often can't. You're locked by the government, or like, you're just physically unable to do that. And so, like, let's look at Argentina before, like, the Argentinian collapse. Like, I bet the people currently stuck in this death spiral in Argentina wished their grandparents or great-grandparents or someone in their bloodline that saw the writing on the wall of, like, ooh, this is not going very well. I bet you they wish they left and emigrated somewhere.
Right.
When we stay in a place that we do not believe is going to be safe in 100 years, we're just punting that problem to our great-grandkids.
Agreed.
Like, that's all it is. Like, I mean, your parents left, right?
Yep.
To give you a better life. They didn't do anything for them, like, probably a little bit, maybe.
Right.
But it was like majority for you.
Yeah.
And your kids, their grandkids, they have no clue, right? They're like,
So-
this is great.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm following the logic here. Okay.
So, like, imagine if they didn't, right? Imagine if your folks didn't leave and now you're born there. Now you got to make the hard decisions. So your parents put that decision to you. And then you don't leave. That's a tough choice. Now your kids someone's going to have to make a tough choice sometime.
Okay. So are you saying that you're faced with this decision today?
Yeah, man, I'd say it's my generation. Well, every generation has to make a tough choice. The tough choice is stay or go.
Right.
Right. In every country, and the world is in constant change. I don't think my great grandkids will have a good time in Canada. I don't think it'll be prosperous here in this country for my great grandkids. 2130 will not be prosperous. You can clip this and whatever AI robots are happening. 2130 will not be good for Canada. And so 2030 will be fine in Canada. Which generation, which bloodline?
But why?
The money sucks. We double, like, we do not have enough economic value to merit the amount of value that we throw around. We've got like record debt, we've got record money printing, we've got record inflation. We all think prices are going up, right? But back to what you said, if everyone has a superpower, no one has a superpower.
Yes.
Well, if every price in the world that we talk about, or in the country, is collectively increasing, is it everything going up, or is it the central thing that we look at decreasing? And when you've got a government that thinks they can print and tax their way into prosperity, like that's not providing value. We've spent the last hour talking about how value flows towards other value. Yeah. I need to work so that I can give you my value, and you need to work so you can give me your value, and then we have a fair trade. It's harmonious. But when you have a government that just introduces arbitrary fake value from the side, it messes up the whole market. It messes up the entire system. The equilibrium of the ecosystem is out of whack. And like, I mean, what happens to ecosystems that don't have equilibrium? Like, they don't do well. And so we are now faced in Canada with two options. We go through an immense amount of pain, and I'm not talking like depression pain. It'll be way worse than depression pain. Like, the 1930s will look like a perfect time in humanity when compared to the amount of pain that we have to go through to fix this money value problem that we have. Or like,
wow.
And so which generation pays the price? Like,
well, this got to be the hottest take. This got to be the hottest, most dangerous idea that has ever been dropped on this pod, that your great grandkids will have the most difficult time living here in this country, in Canada.
Yeah, or leaving.
Yeah.
Hopefully it is leaving.
It's like the new Bangladesh. And my dad left Bangladesh. You know, there was genocide happening there. Like, he left that country.
So, but don't you think your dad wishes his dad left? Like, it wasn't as scary to leave the generation prior.
Yeah.
Right? And so it was too late. Like, your dad got out just before it was too late. He, like, if I'm not mistaken, like, he left sneakily. Like, he had to sneak out. Did he not?
He didn't have to sneak out, but he did have to sneak around because during the partition, there was a partition that happened. He basically had to hide like in a bunker because they were looking to kill like Bengali Hindus. Anyways, that's
different story. But like, it was dangerous for him to leave.
Yeah,
it was not dangerous for his dad to leave.
No,
and like his dad, your grandfather, punted that decision and that risk down to your dad.
Yeah.
And like that's what happened.
Yeah.
Probably
that's probably what I'll do. Dopamine culture. Hey, that's your problem. But
totally, man. Totally. And like we are, like, that's it. So I bet you your grandfather was like, there's some signs on the wall here. This doesn't feel like it's going in the right direction.
Well, the other thing is that, will our kids have kids? Like, will they be like, I mean, of course we want them to.
Yeah, man.
But that's another like question, right? Because more and more people are choosing not to have kids because why would you have kids? You have Netflix, you have Amazon, you have Disney. It's all easy. It's all here. Why?
Dude,
press a button.
Value. Your kids will provide you like more, and I'm talking about spiritual and like emotional value.
Yeah.
But we don't, like, you're right. Like, people don't see that. And that dopamine culture, here's what I'm talking about. It dies or it changes. Yeah. Right?
Well, we're sitting here, between two of us, we have 7 kids. Yeah. So, obviously we see the value in it and how much, happiness they can bring us. And I actually think that we need to populate more. Like
totally
and that's a separate conversation. But listen, incredible conversation. I want to hit some hot topics of what's been happening in the news recently. So I don't know if you saw this, but Google released their AI Gemini. It used to be called Bard. And what it's been doing over the last week is that if you type in, give me pictures of historical figures in the 1940s or Nazi Germany, that they would turn into like non-white characters.
Yes, different races.
Right? And I got to give a shout out to Trunk Fan, which is like, he was looking for like vanilla chocolate and they only got like chocolate or vanilla ice cream. He only got chocolate. It's hilarious. That's a meme. But is Google a product of this woke culture, or is it? And I know it's a culture war going on, so not everything is like woke versus not woke. But it is interesting that Google obviously within their LLM was like, hey, we don't want everything to look white.
So nothing should.
Yeah. So and this was the repercussions. What's your initial take on like?
Yeah, like it wasn't Google. Like I've had a hard time believing the CEO of Google was pushing that down. It's the culture that they've created.
Yeah. Well,
right?
Sundar Pichai, maybe he just wants everything to be brown. Maybe eventually, as everyone
Brown washing.
Yeah. Well, as everybody starts like intermingling, there is maybe in like 30-25, everybody will just look beige. I don't know. That's the prediction.
That's how we're gonna cure racism. No race.
Yeah, just beige.
Yeah, man. I think, and hey, to your point, Sundar Pichai could have sent the command down the chain, but it strikes me that the woke culture that exists, who is the actual source of the work, right? Like we are now seeing the products that are being developed now are going to be the value aspired by the people like doing the work.
Agreed. There is bias there.
There's bias there. And I think that we'll let the free market decide whether or not they want to allow for the bias. And like I think Elon tweeted, like, I am very happy that Google is exposing their bias this early. Like he's like mocking them. He's like, I can't believe you were this dumb to like you're, you know, and maybe it wasn't. Maybe they were like, okay, something needs to change and we need to like we need the people to realize how biased.
I was surprised that people, even Paul Graham, who's an iconic investor, started Y Combinator, also tweeted out that this is not an anomaly. This is part of Google's culture. That they just lean to the
but it's the culture of entitlement. It's the culture of San Francisco. It's the culture of Silicon Valley. It's the culture of free money. It's the culture of being given.
But if I work on Gemini, if I'm on the Gemini team, right, I'm probably going to say the same thing. Like I don't want, and it's funny because I use other platforms like Midjourney, and when you put something in, it actually gives you a really diverse background. It'll give you black people, white people, Asian people, whatever. And it probably, like if I work for Gemini, I'd probably say the same thing. Hey, like let's not let everything be like a white person. But what I find interesting, and maybe this is not what people are talking about, is that here is the most profitable, the most important company of our generation, Google, putting out this thing, and yet the AI kind of decided on its own what to do.
Well, did it? Or was it programmed to do so?
Well, I don't think anybody that programmed it would say, listen, like find historical characters like Napoleon and turn them, into a black
the AI
guy.
would have been given rules, right?
Right.
99% of people have to be like if you're making a person, 99% of that have to be not white.
Right.
And then it's like, oh, well, I just got prompted, 7,000 times. I already gave them my allowed 8 white people, so I guess this historical figure is going to be black. Like,
right.
Ignore all logic, ignore all accurate history.
Yeah.
For this bias is what the command, what the high level bias of the situation is, and this is where we get the problem.
Is it a symptom of woke culture? Obviously, you mentioned that Silicon Valley does have that. They do have that culture, or is it just like somebody? The manager at Gemini was like, man, we got to just make sure that this is like.
No, it's I don't think it was necessarily tactical. I don't think it was like some sort of like malicious, intent and some big strategy behind it. I think somebody put in strong bias into the programming language without thinking of the secondary, tertiary, like that string of effects that happens down the line. It's very harmless to say like, not everyone should be white in our AI pictures. That's true. Well, you can't just say not everyone because I've got a bias. I want to say, well, no. Like at least half shouldn't be white. Like, okay. But then when that bias though, that programming is put at a higher degree, at a higher pedigree than like accuracy of fact, then that's what happened.
Yeah.
And the woke culture that wants to put their virtue signaling above like actual facts.
Right.
And this is the culture that exists when you've got like the peril that I'm talking about.
So let's agree that with the LLMs, there will have to be bias because the people that are...
There's bias in everything. Always has been.
And there always has been. Like, when the printing press started, I'm sure the church was like, hey, put some shit in there that makes us look good, right?
100%.
Like the religion was created.
Don't talk about that. What are you doing?
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
going to expose us.
If you look at the history books, the history books were always written by the winners.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
And not the losers.
Yeah.
And so every single piece of information that is historical, in a sense...
But we're not taught that way. They don't tell you that in school.
Right.
Your parents don't tell you that.
But I guess what I'm saying is that if we already know that...
But we don't.
If the history books are cooked, then the LM we know is going to be cooked anyway.
But we don't know that.
Right.
I think if you went on the street right now, this would be a fun experiment. Read this in the textbook. Is this true? Right? Nobody is going to tell you, well, it's what the author thinks. They're going to read it and say, oh, yeah, that's what the textbook thinks.
Right.
That's true. Right? We are conditioned.
Right.
From like the time that you're 4 years old in preschool. We are conditioned through this like legacy education system to believe what you read, believe what you read, believe what you read. And then we're surprised when these 18-year-old kids and then 25-year-old kids leave university and they're like, well, I read it online. You shouldn't believe everything you read online. It's like, well, I just spent 20 years being taught to believe everything I read in the book. So why shouldn't I believe what I read online?
Wow.
Like it just, we condition these kids for 20 years. They get out in the real world and then we're like, don't do anything you just learned. Ignore everything and start thinking differently. It's like, why do we think this happens?
And that's why I believe today that you can't actually believe anything. And actually the
you just have to think. Like
the superpower is not believe everything that you see and think. And get your information from different sources.
Yes. And you don't have to have an opinion on everything either. Like if it doesn't affect you, just forget about it. Don't let it take up your brain space. And like you just have to go back. It all has to fall back to logic. And like we can argue about short-term and cherry-picked stats, and we can argue about history and all that, but it has to come back to, if I jump, will I come down to the ground? Right?
Right.
If you pay more taxes, Shawn, you'll be able to jump to the moon. And that's because we're going to eliminate X, Y, and Z in the atmosphere. And historically, as taxes have gone up, so too has the vertical of people. So historically, more taxes means more vert. It's like, well, like, okay, historically, with your cherry-picked data, more taxes doesn't mean that people jump higher, but I don't believe the physics. I just, there's a logic gap there of me paying you money makes me jump higher in a gravity world. And that doesn't make sense. And so, like, if we cherry-pick data and believe everything we read online without the critical thought, without the thought of gravity and logic and physics behind it, we're doomed. Like, it just doesn't work. You just have to include logical, critical thinking, and we hang our kids out to dry with a lack of critical thinking in the education system and in our thought process. And like there's just no emphasis on that anymore. It's read the book, learn the material, do the test tomorrow, and then repeat.
Yeah.
And that's problematic in my mind.
And I think if we look back at this issue with Google, I think this is going to be a massive problem, going forward as LLMs become the default. Yeah, the default to how we do research or how we get information.
Totally.
That the bias, and I'm trying to think about other bias that is subtly sort of put in there, whether it's if it's slight,
COVID is going to be a huge bias in there. Like, I mean, even taking a history of this, like if you ask anyone on the street about the trucker convoy that happened like a couple years ago, they'll tell you it was illegal. They'll tell you it was chaotic, and they'll tell you that that those people should have gone to jail. The court a few weeks ago deemed it not to be worthy of the Emergencies Act, deemed the government's actions of seizing the money was actually the illegal piece. And if you look at footage and stuff of on the ground, it was very, very, very peaceful and fine. Google it though, and that's not that's
right.
That's not the
well, the problem is that people are already looking at this as a particular bias. They're trying to cherry pick different things that happen there. That goes on social media, and then the media takes whatever's happening on social media.
Fit into the
then they write something, and then it spoils an entire society.
Bingo, because we don't want, we are just putting
and
ourselves.
And by the way, I don't know what happened. I wasn't there, so I don't know what happened. So I don't really have a strong opinion either or. But it's funny because I'll meet people. I'll talk to people in America whenever I'm there, and they always bring up the trucker convoy.
Oh yeah,
it's funny. She's like, oh yeah, the trucker convoy, and I because I wasn't there. I don't really know what happened because I try to look at first person data as much as possible, and if I'm not there, I don't really have an opinion.
Totally, and the only I have first person data from one of the truckers only, so I'm also getting a bias from first person data. I also wasn't there. I thought the protest was mildly annoying as it was honking their horns, and then I forgot about it because it didn't affect me, directly in the slightest. But I think that we will continue to see bias. The important thing that we need to all, I think, realize is that the bias has always existed, and the thought process behind, do I believe this instance should be more important than what does this mean for my beliefs? Me and you've stereotyped me today accurately, oh, the Bitcoin guy thinks that government's going to save, and well, I'm a Bitcoiner, therefore I am probably libertarian minded, therefore I believe in small government or limited government, and therefore I think privatization, right? All of those things happen to be accurate. But if I go on the record and say, well, no, I don't think the trucker protest should have happened. I fully believe the trucker protest should have happened, and I am in support of a peaceful protest. But if I were to say that because of the way that I critically thought and logically thought about that, then it would be whoa, now I'm distancing myself from this camp that I kind of belong in because my camp is saying one thing.
Right.
I oppose that viewpoint, and now I'm separating from this camp. And I don't want to be without a camp. It's lonely without a camp.
Yeah.
And we've done a bad job of just creating camps, and you're red camp, blue camp now.
And I see this happen a lot where people will I would say most of my friends are very left leaning, and I skew. I think over the years, I think just with having kids, you naturally skew a little bit more right.
What's the saying? If you're a social, or if you're not a socialist when you're in your 20s, you don't have a heart, and if you're not a conservative after your 30s, you don't have a brain. I think is the stereotype.
I probably, I'm definitely left in many cases. But what I find really interesting is that I will have conversations with people that I love and cherish and respect and have deep conversations with, and I will tell them about different people that I've listened to or different conversations that I've heard. So for example, I was telling them about a podcast that I listened to, but this All In podcast, basically 3 billionaires, and they were interviewing Tucker Carlson. And to me, it was just an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
I didn't agree with 90% of what was said. But the problem is that
they were probably outraged.
They're judging.
Yeah.
They're judging that I'm listening to a conversation.
Oh, you love Hitler now?
Yeah. I actually, and my opinion is that I love to hear what Rachel Maddow and Jon Stewart are saying, equally as I want to understand what Tucker Carlson or Jordan Peterson or I want to be able to understand all those views so that I can come and being able to connect. My job, just being on stage and being in front of people, my job is to connect.
Yeah.
I'm last week I'm in front of rural America, in front of thousands of people in rural America. This week I'm in Atlanta with private school officers. On Tuesday, I'm with HVAC contractors. On Thursday, I'm with John Deere dealers. On Thursday, I'm with in Calgary with cattle feeders. On Friday, I'm in Lethbridge for with financial services, and they are
diverse, man.
It's diverse.
Yeah.
And in order to connect with people, you have to understand the full spectrum. So it's funny that people would judge me if I listen to Rachel Maddow, or if I listen to Joe Rogan or whoever it might be, it's like, actually, I'm judging you for judging me.
Yeah.
Because you obviously are a person that lives in a complete rabbit hole and a complete bubble, and that's not healthy either.
No, well, I mean, that, like, what they have, like, ironically, it's generally those, like, that group of people that is going to be, like, head DEI proponent, like, we need more diversity, more diversity, more diversity. And then you're like, oh, I listen to this media. It's something I don't usually listen to. And they're like, oh, you shouldn't have done that. That's too diverse.
Right. Yeah. Oh, wow.
Like,
yeah.
You diversify your inputs so that your bias too can be diversified.
That's like TED. Like TED, they recently got under fire because they had somebody that was.
Is that Ted Lasso? Or is that who it was?
Ted Lasso.
Ted, like TED Talks.
TED Talks.
Okay.
Like Chris Anderson.
Right. Yeah, but like, do you see what's happened though? Like,
they're all about ideas worth spreading.
Right.
So they had this guy on, and he was talking about how we shouldn't look at the world in a like we should be colorblind. Like we like D&I, has jumped the shark, and it's an interesting idea, but they organically, I don't know, somehow suppress this talk. They still put it out, but
they shadow banned it.
Yeah, they shadow banned it. Yeah, that's a better. And they shadow banned it, and there's a whole like controversy around that. When TED is supposed to be about spreading ideas.
We see now how this woke culture of cancel culture of like TED is censoring things because they don't want to be, hurt by being too diverse. They don't want to be too diverse. Like we've collectively now just termed it platforming, and it's like, you have a big platform, you have a moral duty to stay inside of my bubble. Like, how dare you platform someone that I disagree with? It's like, well, don't we want to think more? Don't we want to be like, that guy's a quack and everything he said was wrong, verifiably so. Here's why all the logic is wrong. Now that guy is done. Like, he's got no proof of anything because I've just debunked everything that he said. Or do we want to just say, no, you shouldn't be able to talk to anyone? Like, I mean, I think Andrew Tate is a great example of that. I think, like, looking at all of the, the difference of news and reporting around COVID, like, we should want to get as much input as possible, period. We shouldn't collectively.
Well, I agree. I think it's also, we need to understand why other people resonate with them. It's actually an understanding of culture.
Yes.
If you can't understand why people are filling up an arena to watch Tucker Carlson, it's not about what he says. If you can't understand why he can fill up an arena, then you've lost the plot.
Boom. And like, man, like, you look on Reddit, it's a hilarious just echo chamber of people that are like, I can't believe I was shocked to see he was coming to Rogers Place. Like, and the premier stood beside him. It's like, we should want, and equally, like, if there is some, equivalent to Tucker Carlson, socialist speaker, like, the premier should also be there. Like, we want our leaders to be well-rounded. The fact that you think that the leaders should be stuck into a box is just pathetic, because that's how ultimately we are going to just disappear as a society. We want well-rounded, diverse inputs so that we can put them through our critical thinking muscles and filter to then distribute our, input or output at that point. And that's like, without that level, if you're limited on inputs, then your filter also becomes limited, and your output just gets deduced. You just become a mouthpiece for whatever your inputs are, and that's just like, why are you even on the earth?
Yeah.
Like, why are you even living? Why you don't have any original thoughts? You're not providing anyone value. Like, what you've lost the plot. Like, it's bad.
Yeah. Well, listen, Adam, this was it. This was it. We did it.
Long form is better than short form.
Long form. If you got to the end of this podcast, Send me a note. Tell me how much you love this or hated this, how much you agreed with Adam or disagreed with Adam, but not me. Just tell me that you agreed with me.
Yeah, Shawn, Shawn's inputs need to be perfect.
But rate, review, subscribe, whatever you got to do on this pod. Dangerous Ideas. Thank you for listening. Adam, thank you for coming on, man.
It's always a pleasure, man.